Alright, and welcome back. Alright, so Seki, let's figure out what happened that day. Not again, not again, not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard again. But, oh wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door, key, locked, entry, exit entirely impossible. Well, he's so flustered, he's being even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. Huh? You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Herlock Sholmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside. There's a carriage waiting. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me! Please, please, I'm innocent! Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. Oh, and one more thing. Yeah? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. Do you get to keep your cat? And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken, Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. I mean, he also lied. If he didn't lie, he could have just been a witness. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. That too, we also did solve that. Not really. Mostly. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson's no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. That's right. Ah, and of course... What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamsphere. Alright, Mr. John Garadeb, yeah. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right. We must remember and go talk to him later then. Alright, inspection time. Alright, yeah. Hello, Shamsphere. Oh, the poor man, so young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? Well, I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn into a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Huh? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. Well, there's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Okay, I mean, I really want to look at the poison part. One of the teacups that Mr. Shamsphere and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. Well, I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Well, anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamsphere's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Yay, thank you, thank you. Alright, so the green one is Mr. Natsume. I kind of want to look at that now. Hold on. Let's... Okay, so they look the same. Oh wait, hold on. No, there's a line here. Well, this must be the cup that Mr. Shamster was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does, I'm afraid. Even green tea. So why wasn't Mr. Natsume... So he wasn't drinking anything. Oh really? I never noticed that before. You never noticed... Have you never done dishes, Naruhodo? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down, piping hot. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people have the wrong idea about our culture, and most of them are Japanese. Wait, so, like, it's empty? This is a teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yeah, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. Well, I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly. I shall have to instruct you on the proper way to take tea. Okay, cool. No tearing, Mr. Natsume's cup. Ha 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 ha. I was being a smarty pants and I learned something. Alright, what's this? What's this? It looks like a part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Was that significant? Well, it's a little out of place perhaps when you look around the room. There's no sign of the letter on the rest... Or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there. She's right. And yet, here we have a torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. Well, I agree, we better take this just in case. Okay, so we can't find the rest. Okay, that's not suspicious. Neither's that. What else do we need here? What else do we need here? Oh, I'm sorry. I was clicking through. I didn't notice that. There's more soap? Well, yeah. It looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamster who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room? Oh, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. Huh? What outside? And I was just clicking through just to, you know, click. Brr. It's so cold outside. You can feel it through the sky. If it did snow all last night, it would be cold. But more importantly, what is on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on the ledge outside the window? If it's Zeke's again for the prosecutor for this case, I can't wait for all my evidence to be soap. Okay, what about this? Soap! And the window? Soap! I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Well, still, it's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined outside the window? I think we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah! Do you see in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? Yeah, we're looking at that immediately. But I mean that. Court record. Yeah, no, flip that over. What is that? This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinamaru design of the Japanese flag. It doesn't seem likely given who it belongs to. Oh, okay, so we don't know anything about it? Okay, never mind. I thought it was gonna be like a wax design in the middle, maybe, when we looked up close, but apparently not. Alright, so, whatever. And here we have another disproportionate large machine. Looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Oh, I see. Yeah, now that you pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot in here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here? That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you're a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes. Or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Oh, thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Maybe. Oh, Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fellow into the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in a cell again so soon. Well, I'm sure. We should probably go and, what? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah! Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Eh? Did we not check his pulse? Did we just assume he was dead? Now, how soundeth the next part? God, I love your shoes. Sorry. It's a tale, told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed, oh happy day! Walking Dead! The fella isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think, yes. It was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare? So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that was now. Is that guy trying to peer into a bricked off window? Whatever do you think will happen now? Oh, good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shamsphere did consume poison as we deduced. But was it an accident? Attempted blah blah blah? Or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I mean, I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? Yeah, hello? What's that man doing over there? Oh, he's trying to get soap. He's trying to get soap. He looks like he's trying to get into Saseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me. Can we have a word? Ah. Are you related to Saseki-san? He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? Well, I do too, but I don't remember. I really don't remember. Let's check that out. Oh, no? These are all like before, right? Where's see a bicycle outside the Garadeb residence? I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. Well, that one seems very warped though, especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be the result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid that the rider may have been similarly afflicted. Well, then there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practicing on his bicycle, I think. Wow, rude. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. Wow, we rude. Okay, I think we're good here, so let's... Alright, you'll tell me if I need to find something here? Yeah. Yeah, let's go here first. I remember here. Oh, here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garadeb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget.
Ah, you chaps, eh?
Well, yeah, good morning, sir.
Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday.
Well, it was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garadeb as anyone, really.
Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garadeb.
Yes. I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap on the ground floor room.
Well, those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Yes?
Oh, I'm like, hello?
It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened.
Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer.
And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door?
Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course.
Oh, wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have simply overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Don't tell my business, Sato.
Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry after all and all that. Yeah, no, you're sweating, man.
Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. Oh, the victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
And how would you describe him?
In a word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face it. The only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose.
It's so hard to choose which categories a seki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude.
He was doing research as well.
Huh? Research into what?
Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know? Romeo and Hamlet and all that.
Gyarados like, yeah. Sorry. Like, wait, I would totally read Romeo and Hamlet. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. Well, it seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was a little too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course. Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude. And yesterday's event, sir? Well, after Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning?
Well, now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time.
Mr. Gyarados noticed that there was no light from his room or something, I suppose.
Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspeare got back, and the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there.
Oh, well, thank you. That was very illuminating. ... Is everything alright, Mrs. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Gyarados, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly?
Not a big fan of stairs. Not with this blasted leg.
Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean.
Bzz!
Yeah, that's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it?
I say, I know what you're thinking, and that's bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I?
Then how did you know, Mr. Gyarados?
It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything.
The gas? Speaking gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything?
Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes.
Well, yeah. I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yeah, I understand that too.
Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen?
Well, obviously the room would get brighter.
Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment.
Wait, what? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that it's connected to. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, might it? Oh yeah, of course! Because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable.
Jolly good point. Fact is, The gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here, and they glow brighter in the rest of the house.
Oh, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere.
You've got it.
Oh, of course. Because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever.
In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrideb. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh well, nothing to it really.
Well, and I can't really see that's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrideb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like it's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. Good idea. Alright, bye, sir. Alright, to the prison we go. Saki-san, I'm sorry. Yeah. You say like, hey, this one has my name on it, just stick me in here. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Look, I'm student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Yeah? What is he? Tell me. Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess, you're talking about Mr. Sholmes. He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolical deductions, they're not this world. They've left me. Cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction as well. Oh, yeah, but I'm moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you can only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible. Oh, just say it out loud. Michelle, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm sorry to hear that. Ah, that selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy, William. Well, it seems that Mr. Shamspeare was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was so much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh. Oh. Mr. Natsume? Does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamspeare, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. Who do you think I am, sir? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Ugh. Why am I cursed like this? Leave! No. What's up, man? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell. But Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that cursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. hard to believe that was only yesterday.
Well, after the trial was over, I dredged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at past 9, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare.
So you did go to the victim's room then? As we had feared.
Well, I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. This was the first time.
Then what made you decide to go?
I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell.
Yeah, well that ties in what Mr. Garrett said, that the victim went out and came back after 8.
We met again there in the evening, at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift.
Oh, so that was you who brought the tea. That had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate.
I'm sure.
Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare.
And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspeare's tea? I shouldn't say as a lawyer, but apparently I just did.
No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fella was fighting fit, I swear it categorically.
Okay, so about this curse of yours, sir. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. Like you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I learned it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. And then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why, I mean? Why'd you choose that place? It doesn't seem very, comfortable? Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. The rent? Obviously. There's a reason why it's cheap. It's because the room is cursed. Huh? Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. I feel that. I so get you. I get you, Saseki. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinker? Brave. Very brave, Ryunosuke. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? Probably. Horrible history. How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that may have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who died in that room lean over me in my sleep and are trying to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I've come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shamspear was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out that room as soon as possible. How about this room? This jail cell? It has a bed. No ghosts. People didn't die exactly in this room, I suppose. Yes, you're right. I know it. And that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Oh, okay. Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. Well, of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse in my room as well. Oh, you mean Mr. Garida? Yes. He knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, I mean, that's true. I, for one, would never go even near that place. Ah, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. Oh, you mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no. It's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is Mr. Shamspear isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around, and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. I do hope you're right.
Excuse me?
Hi. Oh, Inspector Gregson.
I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news.
Oh.
Which do you want first?
Always, every time.
The bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That is my guiding principle. Right. Well, in that case, the good news it is.
Huh?
Sorry. It's just a lot easier to explain everything that way.
Why'd you ask me my preference?
As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspear, was just unconscious. He's come around now.
Well, yeah, we saw it all happen. We saw it happen in its terrifying glory.
He's still being treated by the doctors, but we've managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh my god, is they call Saseki a killer? Oh, thank goodness it's all over then. I can leave this somber cell.
Sorry, no. That's not on the cards.
Huh? Why ever not, Inspector?
Mr. Shamspear has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night.
Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean...
I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume.
Oh my god, it's gonna be a hard trial if the victim says, hey, he did it. Ugh.
By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. What wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume.
No.
So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make necessary preparations.
No. And so, once again, Soseki-sen found himself having to take dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him.
Do I get to be continued?
There we go. To be continued. Oh, okay, yeah. I feel like anytime we present any evidence to the contrary, it's just gonna be like, witness said you did it. Alright, laters.